And welcome in, everybody. It's official as we get set for a big weekend of racing at Ellis Park. We look back to a huge weekend from Japan to Royal Ascot to Thistledown. Jeff, it was an eclectic week of racing that we have in our rearview mirror.
Yeah, kind of off the beaten path last week. With we're racing at Los Al now in California, so the big stuff doesn't happen until Belmont is still running, but everybody's waiting for Saratoga. You know that. And with Churchill Downs closed, all the racing going to Ellis. So kind of like a weird week last weekend, but we did have some good racing, especially overseas, not only at Royal Ascot, but in Japan as well. And we're going to look at some winners over there that may show on Breeders' Cup Day. So we'll kind of circle the globe here and see if we can find something worthwhile to talk about.
For me, international racing does come back to, are they coming to the Breeders' Cup or not? That's just kind of my selfish feeling of when I look at those races. Some of them are interesting to watch and entertaining to watch, but I want to know the Breeders' Cup implications. Let's go to the big board. Our first of 5 topics this week on It's Official. It's a punch to the gut because it was an impressive performance in the Ohio Derby for the rising star 3-year-old Two Phils, but the news coming out of the race wasn't as good. First, let's start with the positive, his on-track performance at Thistledown.
5/16 to go there on the far turn. Bishop's Bay takes the lead, but here comes Two Phils. Two Phils alongside, and Two Phils takes the lead. Bishop's Bay tries to counter. Henry Q could not keep up with this pace by these two. Two Phils and Bishop's Bay, top of the stretch. Gerardo Corrales goes to work, and Two Phils responds. Bishop's Bay trying to cling to him in second. A long ways back to Henry Q in third. It's Two Phils with a final 16th to go. This is a serious 3-year-old. It's Two Phils. Two Phils wins the Ohio Derby.
And Jeff, that's the way you want to win it as the odds-on favorite. He was wrapped up. He was in hand. He made that Gary Stevens move on the far turn to take the lead by the top of the stretch and just kind of named his margin under Gerardo Corrales. He was pinch hitting for the injured Jared Fluffberry. Now, injury, the key word here, as Two Phils came out of the race with an injured front ankle after this performance, and that puts his future in big-time jeopardy.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what the injury is. It could be a chip, which is not necessarily, career ending. But if it's a cracked sesamoid or something like that, then it's curtains really in terms of the racing career. And he did it so easily. I don't know. That would be the last thing that I would have thought that would have happened to him. You get that dreaded morning call on Sunday. You're living a high. You just don't even want to hear a phone, call come, and then you get that call, and it's just so crushing. I've had it happen to me, and everybody who's been in the game has had it, but not with a colt that could have been this valuable. I mean, I know that people who own horses and horse racing, that money isn't always the motivating factor. They already have money. They just want to do it for the sport. Me, I want the money. That's just me. But other than that, but when you get to a colt like this, the financials have to figure in, and man, Two Phils, he could have been worth millions upon millions, not only in the money that he could have earned on the track, but then what his stud fee could have been. And now it doesn't look like he's going to be able to build on that. And he's going to go out with a great reputation, but that's not always enough.
Yeah, his resume looks like this, right? I mean, he's a multiple grade 3 winner. He hasn't won at the grade 2 or grade 1 level. 0 for 3 at the grade 1 and grade 2 levels, but he was a Kentucky Derby runner-up. How might that add up as he probably turns next to going to stud? I mean, reading the tea leaves from the quotes I saw from Larry Ravelli, it does not sound like this horse is going to run again to me. They left the door just slightly cracked open, but for every possible, potential good thought that he may return, there was 2 comments about stud farms calling about how you wouldn't want to bring a horse like this back if they weren't at 100% as good as they were. Horses don't come back as good as they once were. So as he turns to a potential stud candidate, how much money could have been lost? I mean, look at this graphic. I did a little research. Horses who were runner-up in the Kentucky Derby like he was in the last 2 decades. These are notable horses who were Derby runner-ups. Empire Maker from the 2003 Derby His initial stud fee was $100,000. Fantastic pedigree. He went on to win the Belmont Stakes, so he got to do something after that Derby runner-up. Hard Spun, who incidentally is the sire of Two Phils, he had a good career. I mean, he ended up winning the King's Bishop, a grade 1 afterwards, ran second in the Breeders' Cup Classic after the Triple Crown Series. He stood for $50,000 in his initial offering. Bodemeister, who had probably the best runner-up finish in the Kentucky Derby, at least until Two Phils, or Two Phils back to at least Bodemeister, the strongest runner-up performances in the Kentucky Derby in the last decade plus. Bodemeister stood for $30,000. He never raced after running second in the Preakness. So he had one race after the Derby runner-up, was beaten in that. Bodemeister might be a closest comparable that we can look at maybe for Two Phils as a stud. Good Magic in 2018 ran second in the Kentucky Derby, of course, to Justify, the Triple Crown winner. But he was a 2-year-old champion prior to that. He stood for $35,000 at first asking. Then Tiz the Law was the Derby runner-up after winning the Belmont. Remember in 2020, the Triple Crown was out of order. Tiz the Law stood for $40,000. So where might we think that Two Phils would fall into such a group?
It really is, because again, he goes to stud with a good reputation, but nothing more than three grade 3 wins, which is not going to point him out. He's also a son of Hard Spun, not a sire of sires. I think Hard Spun's best horse, Wicked Strong, currently stands for 3,500. So really, not only does he lose the opportunity to build on his resume and increase his stud value, but he also loses all those races with magnificent purses that he could have won. I mean, he could have won the Travers. Who knows? He could have won. I'm not saying he could have won the Breeders' Cup Classic, but I'm not saying he couldn't have, the way he ran. And then next winter, maybe he goes to Dubai. I mean, we just don't know what the upside would have been, and that's the real punch to the gut. Not only is it a financial thing, but no one's going to can count on having a horse this good ever again. And to have it just taken away the day after he won his best race. I mean, I can imagine how it feels, because I've had something similar happen to me with my horses, but not like this. No, I don't think I've ever had a horse this valuable that turned to dust so quickly.
Yeah, it's extremely tough break for the owners in here. Patricia's Hope Stable, which is Vincent Folio, the owner breeder Phil Sagan, and Matacat Stables, who bought into the horse, prior to the Triple Crown. So tough break. I mean, as we titled it, a punch to the gut for sure. For every up you get in this game, there's a down. It seems like it's a tough roller coaster. And like you mentioned, you never want to hear that phone ring the morning after something, after a big race or a workout, and you get that call the next morning. Certainly deflating. The best horse in the career of Larry Ravelli, his career, is certainly still in the upward trend. Ravelli, not an older guy, he's middle-aged. He's been around for about a dozen years or so, but he's had good horses in the past, but none like this. This was his lifetime horse to this point, and maybe he can find that next one in his career, but certainly a disappointment to fans. I believe they said they were making plans to head to New Jersey for the Haskell Stakes, and what a showdown we could have had there. For Two Phils, I mean, I know you ranked him last week. We talked about who are your top 3-year-olds in this crop. You had him ranked number 1. I had him up there in the top 3 or 4, and he'll never get to prove that opportunity the way it looks now. He never beat any of the 3 races of the Triple Crown this year.
No,
right?
and not only that, but he won't be able to be a champion, because he will not be able to do anything in the second half of the year to earn it, even though we might end up thinking, he was the best, but you can't think your horse is best and give him championship honors unless he goes out and actually does it. So I feel terrible, because I think we both saw that race, and our initial reaction was, okay, he's for real. He is good. I mean, he destroyed Bishop's Bay, who would run so well in the Peter Pan, and the Wood Memorial winner was way up the track. He won it by daylight. He ran fast. 105 Beyer speed figure. We will remember him, if nothing else, as a colt that had a tremendous amount of talent and ability, and Starcross never had a chance to show it.
Yeah, you had him ranked number 1 last week, and if we had a chance to re-rank this week, I would have moved him up off of that performance, a post-Triple Crown effort, pair that up with what he had done in the previous 2. I guess now when they make the commercial for Two Phils for a stud career, it's going to be, the only 3-year-old to win to run 3 straight triple-digit buyers or something like that, because he's not going to have the graded status.
Right.
He's not going to have those elite races, but he does have 3 very fast speed figures in his last 3 races,
Right.
and that's probably what they're going to try to sell him on. I mean, that's the name of the game in American dirt racing anyway, is speed, and they're going to try to sell him as a very, very fast horse, and we will see if the most successful son of Hard Spun can have a second career, because, it's not official to write him off yet as far as racing, but I would make that a long, long shot to see.
Right.
Let's go now to our second topic as we head out of the country. In fact, do we have the best horse in the world racing in Japan right now? The name is Equinox, and if you go back to the Takarazuka Kenin on over the weekend in Japan, you're going to see on the far outside in the big white blaze a big mover and a big-time horse on the world stage.
Now Unicorn Lion, he's got a lot of company here with Breakup, Ask Victor Moore, Geraldina, Geoglyph, and widest of all runners is Equinox with the big white face looming large now, possibly taking the better ground all the time here. Geoglyph, Geraldina, I think the ones on the rail have been defeated, and here comes Equinox, the world's highest rated racehorse, and he's going to be that today as well. Equinox up towards the line. Equinox wins it from Through Seven Seas, and then came Justin Palace. They're the first 3.
Jeff, from out of the clouds with a big white blaze, you give me that Zenyatta feel. But this horse went wire to wire in Dubai when he won the Sheba Classic. So it's not just a case of a horse who, that makes one big rally. I know Christophe Lemaire did an interview I saw with World Racing where he said, look, this horse did not like the ground at all, came out sluggish. There was a lot of stuff going on in traffic, he said. So I just took him back and got out of the mess. The better part of the course was supposed to be on the outside that day, so we just stayed wide and gave up all the ground, and they still won in hand.
I don't know how many extra points he would have got on the sheets for that trip, but he did lose a lot of ground. I don't know how people who don't know him or know him just barely can appreciate how good this horse is, not just because he just won a Group 1 in the 14 path. But Equinox is a horse that has won 6 out of 8, 4 in a row, last 4 Group 1s. And this race, I'm not really sure who he was beating, although he obviously took the worst of it. But if you go back and look at the chart or look at the race of the Dubai Shima Classic in Dubai in its most recent start before this, that race had, among others who were behind him, Mustadaf, who won the Prince of Wales at Royal Ascot last weekend. Rebels Romance was up the track in that race as well. Right. So I don't really think he has to prove anything other than keep winning, because he's already beaten among the very, very best in the world already, and he trounced them in the Dubai. So now he's won 6 out of 8. He's earned the equivalent of $11 million. So he's by a Japan Cup winner, so the pedigree is there. There aren't any really important Grade 1 or Group 1 races in Japan until the fall, so I don't know if he'll do much between now and then. Now it's just a matter of, Jeremy, of can we, recruit him to come to California to run in the Breeders' Cup turf? I mean, he would be 2 to 5, but I guess he'd be 2 to 5 no matter where he shows up. What are his options? What do you think? Can we entice the Japanese owners to come out here to California? They did well the last time they came, so maybe we can talk them into it.
Yeah, this was a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup turf, but it was also a win and you're in for the Cox Plate in Australia. And the horses from this race in Japan have gone to Australia in recent years. The Cox Plate is October 28th. The Breeders' Cup turf would be the following weekend, November 4th. And then the Japan Cup you mentioned is November the 26th. So I don't know if you take any of those prelude races if you're okay to come back in the Japan Cup. It's 4 weeks and 3 weeks between the Cox Plate and the Japan Cup, and the Breeders' Cup turf in the Japan Cup. So I don't know that they would want to run back in the Japan Cup on 3 or 4 weeks. I'm not sure exactly what their intentions would be, but you almost have to pick one of those 3, I would think. And so, take your pick. I mean, they're all prestigious races, and it kind of just matters which stage you want to perform on, right? Australia, America, or in your homeland there for another big effort. He could pick his spot. The destiny is his. He's the number 1 ranked horse in the world at this point, and like you said, the horses he's run against, the form has been flattered. They've come back, and there were 8 Group 1 winners in that race. The Takarazuka Cannon in Japan is a very interesting horse race. It's one of 2, Jeff, that are voted on by the fans. It's like the Major League All-Star game. The fans vote which horses they want to see in the race. So you get the best sprinters, the best distance horses, the best fillies, the best colts. And in honor, most of them run when they're voted in. So it's kind of an interesting concept. I'd love to see something like that in the United States. They said for this year's race, there were like 2.5 million votes. And the most popular horse to be voted into the race, obviously, was Equinox, the #1 ranked runner. And he performed for the fans, so it's kind of an interesting concept. But, he's run against good horses. The Dubai race proved that. He could go anywhere. If he came to the U.S., we've got Pletcher's got the good turfer, up to the mark right now in the U.S., who's the best of the Americans. But I don't know that he's on the plane of an Equinox, and we would have to find out there. But that's the cool part about the Breeders' Cup. That's what we like to see, right? I mean, when Dancing Brave came here from France way back in the day, and we want to see the best in the world come here and try to get those matchups. We don't often get them in the Breeders' Cup. We get them, maybe once a decade where the absolute elite superstar from around the world shows up. But this would be a pretty cool one and a good time to do it with all the success Japan has had in recent years. It'd be pretty cool to see come November.
Just going to have to throw a massive NIL at him. That's only that. Just pay him to come,
Right.
Yeah, really. I mean, make it worth his while.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's good I'll follow him because he's a world-class horse, and he doesn't have to prove that he can't beat the world's best. He's already did it. And to do it on the lead or from the 14 path from way back, versatility, he's just incredibly gifted, and we'll see. I just have to hope that he stays sound, and then we get a chance to enjoy him here in the Breeders' Cup.
And I get to take the rest of the show off because I pronounced Takarazuka correct 3 times now in the program.
Okay, well, you can call off.
I'm checking out the rest of the way. Third topic, Jeff's got you from here out. Third topic's going to talk about the superstars at Royal Ascot that we saw last week. There were several of them from opening day through closing day Saturday. The first one Jeff wanted to bring out was Paddington. Paddington was the big-time winner of the St. James's Palace was.
Yep.
And the English 2000 Guineas winner was on his game.
Paddington, the blue and orange, is now being asked to deliver a challenge, but Chaldean giving generously inside the 2 has seen off Indestructible. But here comes Paddington, bearing down. The 2 Guineas winners collide. Paddington overtakes Chaldean, and Paddington takes the lead and goes away. Chaldean in second, Sharon is running on in third, but Paddington quite decisively has gone 2.5 lengths clear of Chaldean, and Paddington has done nothing but improve. The Irish Guineas winner comes right away to follow up in the St. James's Palace. Paddington the winner, second home Chaldean, Sharon ran on, and then Isaac Shelby in 4th.
So Jeff, give us your take on Paddington.
All right, here's a horse that has now won 5 out of 6 this year. You recognize the silks. So we've seen those silks in Breeders' Cup races before. So Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore combining here. You had the winner of the Irish Guineas and the English Guineas in this race. Chaldean was the English Guineas winner.
Right.
Most of the punters thought that the English Guineas winner was better, even though Paddington was getting better with every race, and he just swallowed him up over a mile. And I would love to see him come and run in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think that he could certainly be among the very best of the runners. He's only a 3-year-old. We'd expect him to get better by the fall, even though he doesn't have to, because I was checking Racing Post ratings, and I wouldn't say they're buyer numbers, but they're numerical evaluations of horses' performance. And to give you an idea, just for comparison's sake, Racing Post assigned this horse a 126 rating for winning this race. Right. And you should know that Modern Games, his career top is 124. So he's already on pure Racing Post numbers, good enough to win a Breeders' Cup Mile on turf, and got to think he would even get better, and because he's getting better by leaps and bounds. Aiden likes to come to the Breeders' Cup. I would think this colt would be a very logical candidate to come to California and run in the Breeders' Cup Mile.
And for these same connections, they brought one from Royal Ascot that could be filly and mare turf bound if they so choose. Her name is Warm Heart.
Alice is now shaken up towards the outside, racing inside the final furlong and a half, and it's Warm Heart who leads the way under Ryan Moore from Crown Princess. Running up then is Lumiere Rock and then Sea of Roses. Alice is beaten as they go inside the final half of furlong. It's Warm Heart who's strong to the finish, and Warm Heart will win. Warm Heart has won the Ribblesdale.
Jeff, that was one of the more authoritative victories in all the week at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, she was, and again, another one of these 3-year-olds from Maiden O'Brien's barn getting better by leaps and bounds with every start. Career top 112 Racing Post number. She's now won 3 out of 5. She likes firm ground, obviously. Don't forget the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf this year is 1.25 miles.
Right.
She's that was 1.5 miles, but they weren't even sure she'd like 1.5 miles. They think she's better at more of a middle distance to 1.25 miles. Again, connections are such where you would expect that if she maintains this kind of form, that she would be a logical candidate to come over and run in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. I hope she does, but God knows what she's going to be like in November, because she's already spectacular, and she's only run 5 times, and she's getting better with race after race after race.
That's Warm Heart, a prospect perhaps for the filly and mare turf. Now, the turf sprint has been a race that the Americans have had a lot of success in, especially when it's run in Southern California. But based on the performance we saw at Royal Ascot, maybe Shaquille is one to keep an eye on after his performance in the Commonwealth Cup. We're going to take this from the start and then show you where he comes from, because this was just wrecked from the beginning, but it turned out rosy.
And they're off in the Commonwealth Cup. A very slow start. Rearing was Shaquille. A little Big Bear on the outside of the filly swing along. Queen Me is there. Ocean Quest looking for a way through in company with Should Have Been a Ring and Rumstar. And coming towards the near side, Lazoo has still got plenty to do. It's swing along. Queen Me, Ocean Quest, Little Big Bear is driven. Shaquille is coming from a very difficult position at the back of the field to finish well as they head towards the last furlong. Swing along, Little Big Bear. Shaquille running a blinder, then Ocean Quest and Queen Me. Little Big Bear with Shaquille challenging on the attack, the far side. Shaquille, having made a mess at the start, is coming out brilliantly. An extraordinary win in the Commonwealth Cup. Shaquille and Oisin Murphy for Julie Camacho denies Little Big Bear and Swing Along in 3rd place.
Can we get Shaquille back to L.A.? I mean, we need the diesel in Southern California. And, Jeff, you think of the Breeders' Cup turf sprint being a downhill turf sprint and how we get those frantic finishes?
Yeah.
A horse can finish like Shaquille did there. Could be very effective.
Well, and it's 6.5. It's, you look at a horse like this and you figure if it was at Keeneland or somewhere else, it would be 5 or 5.5.
Right.
It might be tough, but 6.5 down the hill with a long run in. I mean, ideally suited for this 3-year-old colt who has won 6 out of 7. This was not some flukish win. He has all of a sudden become the talk of Europe. And obviously no one expects him to get left at the gate all the time. He never did. This was just one of those, he wasn't ready and he lost the race at the start, only he didn't lose it. He won it anyway. And here's another thing. I'm going to quote Racing Post numbers again, because I use them, not that I think they're necessarily the end all, but I use them for comparison purposes. He earned a 122 Racing Post rating in winning this Grade 1, Group 1 Commonwealth Stakes. When Caravel won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year at Keeneland, she earned a 116. So even, and I don't know if they incorporate the bad start in the rating. I don't know how they do it, but all I can tell you is, as a 3-year-old who's won 6 out of 7, he's already good enough to win a Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. And again, what is he going to be like 5 months down the road or 4 months down the road? So I hope he comes. I hope they can entice him. Unlike, for example, Warm Heart, who's a daughter of Galileo, you kind of expect him to be good. This colt is by nothing out of nothing by nothing. So I don't really know where he's getting it. All I know is Shaquille he's for real, and I would love to see him in California.
Let's hope. Let's cross our fingers. Now let's talk more Breeders' Cup this week on It's Official with our weekly Breeders' Cup tracker between now and the big one coming up in November at Santa Anita. We've got a big week of racing coming up on the Breeders' Cup winning your in circuit. Some different divisions could see horses propel themselves towards the Breeders' Cup this Saturday at Ellis Park as we turn the page to July. The American Derby for the 3-year-old turfers gets things underway. These entries are already out. Get your past performances at your favorite provider and get handicapping the Kelly's Landing for the sprinters, the Distaffers, and the Florida Lead. The Wise Dan, of course, a turf mile. Tepin Stakes at the end for the Filly and Mare Turf Division, or perhaps the milers there. That race, I believe, at a mile and a 16th. And then the Stephen Foster in between. Race number 10, that's the big headliner in there. You're going to see horses in the Breeders' Cup Classic Division kicking up their heels. Looking forward to that coming up Saturday at Ellis Park. I'll have some handicapping on that on the Xpressbet and First Bet websites a little bit later in the week. Will also be the Xpressbet race of the week will be the Stephen Foster. So that's what we have to look forward to in the Breeders' Cup Division in our tracker. But, Jeff, last week, a filly who every once in a while pops a big race, popped a huge race at Ellis Park. Her name is Society, and in the Chicago Stakes, man, she rolled home.
Matt Terea set down for the drive. She just went past Trafaros, but she's still 5 lengths behind Society, who rolls off the turn, now in front by 6. Society down to the final furlong, now by 7. Trafaros in a good battle for second with Matt Terea. Nobody catching Society. Streaking through the stretch to score by 9 lengths on the wire. And Trafaros got second.
That was a big-time effort and beating a big-time filly in Matarea. You could say, where did it come from? But we saw that last year in the Cotillion. I don't know where she, leaves and departs to when she doesn't have those kind of efforts. But, man, when she's on her game.
She got away with an opening quarter in 22-2, and I think that really kind of perked her up a little bit. She didn't have to work hard to get there. The main contender, Monterey, did not show a lot of early speed. She was sitting in a good spot, and she couldn't even get up to second. So obviously she didn't fire. But Society, 105 buyer number, by far a career top. And as you pointed out, when she's really good and she can look like King Kong when she feels like it. Last time out on the La Troyenne at Churchill, she finished 9th, got beat 15 lengths. Before that, she was 3rd, beaten 5 in a 5-runner race in the Madison. And before that, she finished 7th, beaten 18 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
But better.
Yeah, right. Well, she cleared. She got an easy lead that day, but I think maybe now they should probably keep her around one turn. You think? Yes. I mean, her sprint form by and large is really good. She's won, obviously, routing. She did that in the Cotillion, but maybe she's a little bit more consistent sprinting. Anyway, Steve Asmussen probably was thrilled, but maybe puzzled. Why don't I see this all the time? And so you never see what you're going to get from her. But she's won 6 out of 10, so it just shows you that when she wants to beat you, she can beat you. And I think she could be a serious contender for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint based on this race.
Yeah, and you don't probably with a filly like this, you just want to put her in bubble wrap and not do it. You don't want to run a couple times between now and the Breeders' Cup. I'm not saying lay off from June to the Breeders' Cup, but certainly one more race out of this and call it quits, maybe something at Saratoga or something, the Ballerina or something like that. But yeah, I would keep her around one turn and I'd give her a lot of time between now and the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So maybe, probably wheel her back at the Ballerina at Saratoga, see what happens, and then shut down the lights and go to 7/8 of a mile, which ought to be a really good distance for at Santa Anita for the Breeders' Cup. We are looking for stars of tomorrow on this program. Some weeks it's easier to find than others. Our 5th and final topic this week takes us to Los Alamitos and a horse Jeff spotlighted, a 3-year-old winning named Wickline.
3/16 left to go, and Wickline holds the lead. Will be sticking to his guns gamely on the inside. Central Dispatch is 3rd, coming past the 8th pole, and Wickline under heavy pressure. Will be keeps punching away on his inside. It's Wickline with the lead. It's Wickline too good. He's starting to come away close to home, and this imposing specimen scores by 2.5 lengths. It's Wickline over Will Be. Central Dispatch a long way clear of Stavros.
So, Jeff, we're going to see a lot of 2-year-olds in these stars of tomorrow coming up with Saratoga and Del Mar in the next few weeks. But this 3-year-old's late to the party, but you think has a little bit of upside to him.
Well, he does. He brought 275 as a yearling, despite the fact that there's only one stakes winner in his first 4 generations, and that was his 3rd dam, a very good mare named Saudi Poetry. But other than that, it's a blank page, and for them to give 275 for a colt like this as a yearling, I could see it in a 2-year-old sale, but as a yearling, that's a lot of money. And he's a big, heavy-bodied monster of a colt, which is one of the reasons why he took so long to get to the races for trainer Bob Baffert, who probably could have waited till Del Mar. But I think here, he does this, Bob. He runs some of these really nice horses at Los Al. He did it with Arrogate, for one. I know that. And really, when you think about it, this is a colt who now has got that maiden out of his way, and now he can go into allowance company and develop. He trained like a monster before the race, which is why he was 4-5. The runner-up was another first-time starter that was very well regarded. The third horse was an Arrogate first-time starter that brought 750. So this was not your normal Los Alamitos maiden race, let's face it. And now that Bob's got that win underneath him, I could really see this colt. And by the way, we didn't show the gallop out, but he galloped out 100 miles in front. So I could really see this colt develop at Del Mar into the fall and become a legitimate graded type stakes winner. He ran 8 and change out in 15. They ran fast. So, we're always looking for these late developing 3-year-olds this time of the year, and I think we may have found one. We'll see. He's got a chance, I think, based on the way he looks and the way he moves, to be a good colt. His name is Wickline.
A lot of horses don't look good. The camera work, the angles, everything. When you watch a replay from Los Al, it's hard to be wowed a lot of times.
Yeah.
This horse looked pretty darn good. So that's despite some of the visual hurdles. Let's review the topics this week as we are 5 up and 5 down. The punch to the gut was the win in the Ohio Derby by 2 fills, but the subsequent injury to his ankle that might put his career on ice, no pun intended. Best horse in the world, perhaps? Japan's Equinox, the Takarakaza Kennen winner. Was impressive with the wide rally and could be headed towards the Breeders' Cup, the Cox Plate, or maybe even the Japan Cup. Jeff spotlighted 3 horses with maybe Breeders' Cup aspirations from the Royal Ascot meet, and we saw Paddington, Warm Heart, and Shaquille do their thing on the grass in Jolly Old. Hopefully we'll see them at Santa Anita in the fall. And speaking of the Breeders' Cup, our Breeders' Cup tracker took us to Ellis Park, where Society just destroyed the competition, including Mataraya in the Chicago Stakes. And our star of tomorrow for this week, the 3-year-old Wickline for trainer Bob Baffert, debut winner at Los Alamitos. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's how we play the game here each week. We'll pick 5 new topics next week. Sometimes we have a little irrelevant or irreverent, sometimes it's irrelevant too, bonus topic here on the show. And we've got one for you this week because our buddy Eddie Olczyk was back in the handicapping sphere on Sunday and came out of the octagon $52,000 richer, winning the Hawthorne Invitational. Congrats to Edzo winning the Hawthorne Invitational handicapping tournament. If you didn't see it, it was an on-track contest where everybody was in the same ballroom playing, and Hawthorne put out this great video on their social media. They matched the race up with the reaction. Edzo's got an 80-1 shot in the last race, and notice how long it takes him to get excited. He was probably hopeful for a long way and then got excited at the end.
Right behind him, the South Country Gold Fence Sun Race continues to rally on the outside. Around the turn over this right, South Country Gold comes up and come in central leader.
All right, we didn't put the beep in there. We think you're adult enough to hear the language. So when Eddie's excited, he's really excited. 80-1 winner there. I think he did exacta and the try as well. That's how he got his bankroll from $3,000 to $52,000 in that race in the Hawthorne Invitational. So he won that, $10,000 first prize and all the trimmings that go with it. Eddie and I are going to sit down and talk about tournament play and his thoughts about playing tournaments and how exciting they are on the heels of this victory. We'll have that on the social media channels and on the websites for First Bet and Xpressbet coming up a little bit later this week. So look forward to checking in with Eddie. But that was fun to watch and go down the stretch with him. You know, come on with this 9. We've said that all a million times as horse players.
And it's not like this was his first. He's won other tournaments, I know.
Yeah. Pegasus World Cup Championship.
Right. So there you have it. But very interested to see how he was going to cheer as I got closer to the wire, and I was impressed. I really was. I mean, that was. I think he, I think he helped that horse a little bit. Me now, when I have a big price horse in front in the final 16th mile, people cheer differently. I'm not a big cheerer, but I would be saying something to I would be relaxed up until maybe the 70-yard marker pole, and then I would go into my where's the bleeping wire? Because he's in front, but where is that wire? Get it up there already. So but that was great, and we've all been in the position, maybe not to win 50 grand like that, but when you have a big price horse in front and you can't just sit there, because that doesn't do anybody good. You got to yell and scream. Yeah. Not that you think the jockey can actually, or the horse can actually hear you, but you have to do it anyway, right?
I'm a cheerer for sure. I mean, I know the jock's name on my horse, and it's set him down, whatever the guy's name is. If it's Stuart Elliott, I'm yelling, set him down, Stewie. I can guarantee you it with Smarty Jones coming down the stretch at the Preakness or the Derby, it was set him down, Stewie, and I'm yelling that 1,000 times down the lane. That's the way that I do it. Tell us in the comments here if you're watching on YouTube or you follow along on social media. How do you cheer your horses home? We'd love to hear it. That's one of the fun things going on social media right now, right? Great reactions. We see it, whether it's, family reactions after the NBA draft, or Bryce Harper after hitting the big home run to send the Phillies to the to the World Series last year, that kind of thing like that. Reaction shots are big on social media. How do you guys react out there and gals when you watch a horse race, when you hit a good one? Would love to hear about that. Be sure to like and share this video on YouTube and on social media channels so we can keep growing our audience. And It's Official will return in a week's time when we review what's going on at Ellis Park on a big Breeders' Cup preview weekend. Stephen Foster Day coming up this Saturday. I want to give you a couple of handicapping notes. Everything must go at Gulfstream Park on Friday. It's the last day of the fiscal calendar year, June 30th in Florida, which means nothing can carry over to the next day. It's mandatory payout Friday at Gulfstream Park in their Rainbow Six wagers. And that's why you're going to see that screwy random date of racing at Tampa Bay Downs. They have to run on the last day of the fiscal year for something to get some kind of simulcast contract. It's all governmental. I don't understand, but I know they're going to be running live racing Friday at Tampa Bay Downs, which is off the schedule a little bit. Big weekend in harness racing, the Messenger Stakes and the Yonkers Trot this weekend. So Al Samagli, our harness handicapper, is going to have some previews of that at Xpressbet and FirstBet a little bit later this week. So a lot of fun stuff going. And then it's the Irish Derby coming up, or Derby, I guess we got to say, if we're talking Irish Derby. That comes up this Sunday. So a lot of fun stuff to come, and we're going to review it next week, Jeff.
We will. I'll have best plays Saturday and Sunday on the website, so check that out. And looking forward to a great day of racing at Ellis, as you pointed out, on Sunday. So a good week of racing as we steadily await Saratoga and Del Mar.
Jeff and I will be back on Friday with the First Call podcast, where we handicap 8 great stakes races around the country. Until then, good luck at the track, everybody.